The 19th Siddhi, sacrifice. The 5th initiation, the Annunciation. The path of frequency through the 19th gift goes from codependence to independence and finally to interdependence. Interdependence represents a quantum leap beyond the other two, and its realization is the future destiny of our species. In many ways, it is the 19th shadow of codependence that contains the seed of the 19th Siddhi of sacrifice. In a codependent relationship, both partners have sacrificed a part of their true selves to their relationship, and the resulting lack of synthesis they feel drives the negative patterns of their relationship. In a relationship that is truly interdependent, both partners also sacrifice their sense of individuality into a higher vision of their divinity, holding nothing back for themselves at all. The true meaning of interdependence is about entering into a state of union with all beings in the cosmos, which involves the death of the separate self. This kind of sacrifice can only occur when you give your heart unconditionally to another. Instead of dying, you're actually reborn as a higher dimensional being. In surrendering your smaller self, you attain realization of your greater self. Through the 19th gene key, you can see how each level of frequency has to transcend itself entirely. Once humans overcome their codependence on outside agencies, they finally achieve independence. Likewise, once they attain independence, they have to take another great leap to give up their hard-earned independence and trust in the totality itself. This surrender to the collective structure involves sacrifice at the highest level of the world's meaning. This is the sacrifice of your separate identity, and perhaps far more frightening for the separate self. It is the sacrifice of your body. The 19th Siddhi shares a profound connection with the 49th Siddhi of rebirth. These two Siddhis represent the key mystical process that will eventually overtake the human species. Great secrets are held within the world's myths, and here you can see the myth of sacrifice. The Norse Odin hanging upside down on the world tree, or Christ hanging on the cross. All sacrificial myths lead to a rebirth, and all such myths are anthropomorphises of deep genetic secrets within human DNA. As we have seen, this 19th gene key has a deep connection with the animal kingdoms. Humanity has evolved out of the animal realm. We are the result of a series of genetic mutations that took place in primates and finally led to creation of a new species, Homo sapiens. Through this 19th Siddhi, you can see how consciousness has traveled through form after form, each time creating a more complex form in order to house a higher frequency than the previous one. At every level with this chain, the higher form has lived off the form below it in order to keep evolving. Life is thus a living chain of sacrifice. Earth is really the breeding ground for a series of genetic leaps that parallel the awakening of our full spiritual realization. Our awareness is like a series of Russian dolls, and make each leap in awareness, we come to realize we are housed within a wider framework than we had previously understood. There are a total of 9 dimensions that our Earth has to move through, and as we pass through each of these initiations, we have to sacrifice our smaller, local self before finally being born as a true universal human being. Consciousness is now beginning to outstrip man and is reaching out for a higher form. But the new form must emerge out of the old one, so deep within human DNA, new mutations are being triggered. This is one of the main reasons for the vast population explosion on the planet. Our genes require the maximum diversity in order to trigger a genetic mutation potent enough to reshape Homo sapiens into something quite different. It is also the reason why so many new diseases are emerging through our DNA. They are all early mutations, precursors of what is to follow. Through the 19th Siddhi, not only the individual that must sacrifice him or herself into the whole, but also the whole human species that must be sacrificed. Everything we see happening in the world around us, from pollution to global warming to wars and social upheaval, is a result of the profound genetic process we are undergoing. For those with the 19th Siddhi, the focus is always on the future needs of humanity rather than the current needs. These people understand what is to come as well as what we must go through. Such people stand alone as heralds of a future consciousness, and their lives are a magnificent example of sacrifice to that consciousness. They emerge during times of great mutation, since they themselves are in the grip of that mutation. With their hypersensitive mutated DNA, they see the new form emerging and do their utmost to prepare people for the coming consciousness shift. They are highly sensitized bridges to the new human and have the ability to siphon information about the new paradigm from behind the veil of the future into the present. Every Siddhi has to make its sacrifice in this way because each of them represents a being from the future that works in the present. The 19th Siddhi contains the secrets of mystical initiation. Every aspect of the Earth's consciousness must move through the 9 portals of initiation before our collective planetary evolution comes to an end. Each of these initiations is explored in more depth within the 22nd gene key. The 9 portals of planetary initiation. The future human being. Number 1, birth. 2, baptism. 3, confirmation. 4, matrimony. 5, annunciation. 6, communion. 7, ordination. 8, sanctification. 9, glorification. Each initiation brings us into a wider awareness of our interdependence with the whole. When the 19th Siddhi manifests in form, then a great being makes an individual sacrifice on behalf of the whole. This is the mystery and hidden meaning of the life of Christ. Through an individual sacrifice, the 19th Siddhi allows the entire collective to pass through a group initiation. We can see how the Christian rites hold the codes of the great initiations, even though they have been effectively frozen into structures that have little or nothing to do with the initiations themselves, which occur organically and usually over the course of many incarnations. The ring of Gaia, then, of which is gene key is a vital aspect, connects all Earth's beings on the same initiatory journey. As the ultimate form manifestation of Gaia, humanity stands on the cusp of one of the greatest initiations, the 5th initiation of the Annunciation. Mystically speaking, this great initiation has to do with the conception of a holy child within the body of humanity. Thus, the whole of humanity must sacrifice its independence for a higher vision. This mythical annunciation can only take place through the synarchy, the communion of evolved souls who collectively pioneer this great sacrificial impulse. The 19th Siddhi will be one of the first Siddhis that awakens in man at a collective level. As soon as the great mutation has occurred within humanity and we pass through the 5th initiation, we will see what kind of shift has taken place. One of the traits of the new human will be an incredible sensitivity that is far beyond being psychic. Awareness in such a being will not recognize itself as being separate from other human beings. Thus, they will work for all humanity without caring for themselves. Although we call that sacrifice, it is not so for them, since they will know no other way to live. This 19th Siddhi is a herald of the future forms that will house higher frequencies of consciousness, and as such it displays the great inadequacy of our language. Just as our language has evolved out of our reliance on the 5 senses, future forms will operate through entirely different languages. Current human language is auditory, but future forms will communicate through their environment using a sense that is closer to what we call touch. This is the true language of Gaia. the interconnective auric tissue that brings all beings of the planetary sphere into full awareness of their inherent unity.